Hello everybody, warm Christmas greetings from Krakow. So it's quite some time since I put a film together. I've been busy the last month since summer looking after our Insight Vacation travellers here in Poland and through Central and Eastern Europe, and I thought it was time to put something together again. So I thought what better time and place than here in Krakow just a couple of days before Christmas. So we'll take a walk through town and we'll end up in the Christmas markets. I'll show you a little bit about what's going on down there, some of the nice treats and food I like to enjoy at this time of the year. But I'm starting up here. I'm on the Wawel Hill. Wawel Hill is where Krakow's Cathedral and Castle complex are located, and it was the center of power for the Polish kings ever since the early mid-11th century. When they moved their power base from Wielkopolska, from the area surrounding Poznan and Gniezno, here to Krakow, this place that I'm standing now. Wawel Hill, already for centuries by then, had been a very well fortified location of the Vistulan tribe. Very well naturally fortified too, surrounded by branches of the Vistula River. And up here on the hill is where the Vistulans had built their settlement, and where the kings of Poland decided to build their very well fortified castle complex. So Krakow became the seat of the bishop in the year 1000 AD. Work began on the first cathedral. The cathedral behind me mostly dates from 13th, 14th centuries, time of Kazimierz the Great. It was the place of coronation of Polish kings for many centuries, place of burial of many of those Polish kings and queens, including some of the greatest. Kazimierz the Great, King John III Sobieski, Queen Jadwiga. Some of Poland's most famous writers are buried in there, Mickiewicz and Słowacki, and Poland's national heroes, including Tadeusz Kościuszko, all in the crypts of the cathedral. Some of the most recognisable landmarks of Krakow are there too. The gold dome of Sigismund's Chapel is one of those very recognisable landmarks. The chapel that it sits above of Sigismund the Old is considered one of the great Renaissance masterpieces outside of Italy. And in fact, the entire castle complex, much of it, is from the Renaissance period, particularly during the time of the king Sigismund the Old, who employed Italian Renaissance artists and architects, in particular Berrecci, to come here and to construct wonderful castle complex palace buildings in the Italian Renaissance style. So, of course, this is also the place beneath me, inside the hill, are the caves where legend has it many centuries ago, during the time of the first legendary ruler King Krak, where the dragon lived, the Smok Wawelski, the Wawel dragon. He's become the symbol of the city, and everywhere you look around the city we see stuffed toys and books, posters and pictures representing the famous dragon of Wawel Hill. So we're going to go and explore a little bit the city of Krakow. It's a beautiful day. It's -2 at the moment, so it's cold. That's in the Celsius scale. In the Fahrenheit scale, I think that makes it about 27, 28 degrees. But the sun's coming out. That's nice. It's been snowing overnight, but now the sun's coming out, so it should be a nice walk. Let's go. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like my films, and let's go and enjoy a little bit of Krakow.
Radują się ludzie, radują się.
I'm standing down at the base of the Wawel Hill, below Krakow's castle, and next to the famous dragon of Wawel. There are many different versions of the same legend of the dragon, and all of them date back to the time of legendary King Krak, a time when this dragon would terrify local townsfolk, eating their cattle and their sheep, and King Krak decided to put it out to the realm that anybody that could defeat the dragon would have his daughter, the princess's hand in marriage. Many princes and knights attempted to slay the dragon, none successful, until a young apprentice cobbler decided to trick the dragon by stuffing the carcass of a sheep full of sulphur, placing the carcass outside the dragon's den. The dragon ate the sulphur-stuffed sheep, and as his stomach began to burn, he came down here to the Vistula River, drank from the river until his stomach exploded. He'd saved the local townsfolk, and he took the Princess Wanda's hand in marriage. Well, I'm standing here in the park of the Franciscan Church, where on Christmas Eve a live nativity scene will be set up. Live animals, they'll create the manger and have live people representing Mary and Joseph and Jesus and everybody else involved with the birth of Jesus. But I'll just point out this yellow building behind me. After the palaces, the royal palaces of the Wawel complex, this is the largest palace in the city, and this is the Bishop's Palace, which has been the home of Krakow's bishops who served in the cathedral on the Wawel Hill. Ever since the 14th century, the bishops have lived in this yellow palace, and in the window is a picture of the most famous of Krakow's bishops, Karol Wojtyła, who of course in 1978 was elected to the papacy as Pope John Paul II. So he was the bishop here in Krakow. He came from a nearby town called Wadowice. He was ordained as priest here and served his entire priesthood and as bishop and cardinal here in Krakow before becoming Pope John Paul II. A much loved Pole, much revered Pole, and of course not only the leader of the world's 1 billion Catholics for so long, but also instrumental in the fall of communism here in Central and Eastern Europe. So very much loved. And here in the Bishop's Palace, at that window where his picture is where he used to stand and converse with local people, not only when he was bishop, but when he came back to visit as Pope as well. So one of the great unique features of Krakow at Christmas time is this. This is a Szopka, and Szopka are these very richly decorated nativity scenes which are set against historical buildings of Krakow. This tradition dates back to the 19th century, and the knowledge of how to construct these are passed down from father to son through generations. And every year on the first Thursday in December, local Krakowians, local townsfolk who've built these, they spend a lot of time building these leading up to December, and every first Thursday in December they bring them to Krakow's main market square, the Rynek Główny, and they place the newly built Szopki on the statue of Adam Mickiewicz, Poland's national poet, where they're judged. The very best Szopka goes into the Krakow Historical Museum to be displayed, and others are put around the city to be displayed, like this one and like many others at this time of the year. And just a couple of years ago, in 2018, the Szopka of Krakow were awarded the status of intangible cultural element of the city by UNESCO. So a unique and a wonderful and decorative feature of a Krakow Christmas. I'm here in Krakow's University Quarter. The university here was founded during the mid-14th century by King Kazimierz the Great. He recognised that he needed a very well-educated class to run his kingdom. It's the second oldest university of Central Europe after Prague. The statue next to me is one of the most famous students to have attended this university. It's the famous Polish astronomer Copernicus. He was born in the town of Torun, which is in north-central part of Poland, but he studied here in the Jagiellonian University of Krakow during the mid-1490s, before going to continue his studies in a number of universities of Italy. One of the most famous paintings of the Polish artist Jan Matejko of the 19th century is a painting of Copernicus. It's called Copernicus the Astronomer, Conversations with God. Normally it hangs here in the University of Krakow, but for the last year it's been on exhibition in the National Gallery of London. So perhaps if you've been through London, you've been lucky enough to see it in what was the first exhibition of a Polish artist in the National Gallery. So wonderful artist, wonderful works. Jan Matejko lived his life here in Krakow, and many of his scenes based on events which occurred here in Krakow. I'm standing here on one of my favourite urban spaces in the entire city. It's called the Plac Jana Matejki. It's dedicated to Jan Matejko, Poland's national painter. From the 19th century, he was the one who lived his whole life here, born in Krakow, and painted these great epic scenes of Polish history at the time when Poland didn't exist on the map of Europe. During the partitions, Poland had been partitioned between its powerful neighbours. He actually served here. This big red building on the square is the Academy of Fine Arts, and he was the president of this academy at the end of the 19th century. So this whole square boulevard is dedicated to him. Behind me we have the tomb of the unknown soldier from the First World War, and beyond that the Grunwald Monument, very important monument which was unveiled in 1910 on the 500th year anniversary of one of the great battles of the Middle Ages, the Battle of Grunwald between Polish and Lithuanian forces under King Władysław II Jagiełło on one side, and on the other side the Germanic Teutonic Order, an order of warrior monks, if you like, established in the Holy Lands during the Crusades, who were invited by Polish dukes to help to baptize and Christianize the pagan Prussian tribes of the Baltic coast. Having done that, they established their own state in the north, and it led to a series of wars over centuries between Poland and the Teutonic Order. So this famous battle of 1410, Teutonics defeated by Polish and Lithuanian forces. And at the very far end of this square is the Church of St. Florian, one of the patrons of the city and a patron of Poland, and a very important patron saint. St. Florian's relic was brought here at the end of the 12th century, and only made it as far as the outskirts of the city. The bullocks that were drawing the carriage containing the relic refused to go any further. So it was decided to build St. Florian's Church right there where they stopped. This area of the city, like many areas of the city, has been destroyed during the history many times by fire, but miraculously that relic of St. Florian always survived. It's for that reason that St. Florian today is the patron of the firefighters as well as the chimney sweeps, both of which are very important here in Poland, but particularly the firefighters. And in the small towns and villages, every village volunteer firefighting brigade will have a monument or a dedication of some type to St. Florian. And that church, incidentally, of St. Florian was the first place that the young vicar Karol Wojtyła worked when he was ordained as priest in the late 1940s. So I'm standing here in front of the Barbican, which is considered a marvel of military engineering of the late 15th century, 1400s. It was built in preparation for a possible Ottoman Turkish invasion of the city of Krakow. Krakow was invaded a number of times over the history, and particularly during the 13th century, invaded by the Tatars 3 times. It's what led to them constructing a massive series of fortifications around the city. A double set of ramparts containing 7 gates and 48 towers, and then this fortified outpost with its 120 embrasures for the archers to fire their arrows from. As well as the ramparts, the gates, the towers, and the Barbican, a wide moat, on average some 6 to 7 metres wide around the Barbican, 24 metres across, and then a drawbridge connecting the Barbican across to the most famous of those gates entering into the city of Krakow, St. Florian's Gate. This area is all a part of the royal route from St. Florian's Church on the Plac Jana Matejki, past the Barbican, through St. Florian's Gate and down Florianska Street. Royal processions, coronary processions, funerary processions, important occasions would make their way towards Krakow's castle. The best preserved piece of Krakow's former city wall is here. Just a very small park containing St. Florian's Gate and 4 of those former watchtowers. At the height of existence there were some 48 towers and 7 gates, and the moat that moat which once surrounded all of Krakow's downtown, old town core was filled in. During the 19th century, actually, the walls came down, again during the Austrian occupation. They were in terrible need of repair and they didn't serve the purpose anymore. The military technology and the artillery of the 19th century were far too advanced for city walls. And like so many other cities of major centres of Europe, the population was growing, the city was expanding, and city walls needed to be taken down to allow for that expansion into outlying villages which became the suburbs. And so in the 19th century the walls were taken down, the moat was filled in, and where that moat was became the Planty Gardens. And so today we have 4.5 kilometres, almost 2 miles of city parks and gardens surrounding the old town centre where the moat once was. So this is one of my favourite little corners of the city. Here in what was formerly the city arsenal of the Middle Ages is one of the city's great museums, the Prince's Czartoryski Museum. The Czartoryski were wealthy, noble family of Poles from eastern Poland. They lived in a town called Puławy, had large land holdings up until the late 18th century when Poland was partitioned amongst her powerful neighbours, Russia, Austria and Prussia. At that time, a princess by the name of Izabela Czartoryski, she's considered Poland's Enlightenment princess. She took the wonderful art collection which they'd amassed over time and she moved it to the safety of Paris. Eventually, during the 19th century, they decided to return with those artworks, not to Puławy in eastern Poland, but here to Krakow. And they established a museum here in the city's former arsenal. And it's perhaps here that one of the best known paintings in Krakow is located, Leonardo da Vinci's Lady with an Ermine, as well as works by Rembrandt and Hans Holbein. It was also here that up until the Second World War, Raphael's portrait of a young man was kept. It was stolen by the Nazis and never recovered. So I'm just enjoying a walk down Florianska Street, the most elegant street of Krakow. Very beautiful street, beautiful old tenement buildings, apartment buildings. And I decided it's time to warm up, so I've pulled into this great little shop which specialises in Polish vodkas and regional drinks, and I'm having my first grzaniec of the day. Grzaniec is Polish for mulled wine, blue wine. Very good. That warmed me up nicely. And then I'm going to continue on down to the Christmas markets.
A tu jesteś
So I'm standing here on the Rynek Główny main market square. Largest, most beautiful medieval market square in all of Europe. And behind me is the Sukiennica. This is the old cloth hall. This is one of the oldest trading halls, we could call it a shopping gallery, in all of the world. This one dates from Renaissance times, 15th century, early 16th century. But there's been a complex of some type for the traders ever since Romanesque times, 11th, 12th centuries. Krakow's traders were trading salt from the salt mines of Wieliczka, furs from the east, from the lands of Russia, amber from the north, from the Baltic coast. All sorts of goods were being traded here in Krakow, which was on a crossroads of trading routes. And people would come from all over Europe. We'd have Venetian traders selling their silks and their spices from the Far East. We would have traders from France selling their wines and their foodstuffs, traders from England and from Ireland selling wool and the likes, and all types of things being traded here in the cloth hall. Now exactly where I'm standing here is on the place where on the 24th of March in 1794 Tadeusz Kościuszko, famous Polish patriot, military engineer, swore his allegiance to the country and became the commander-in-chief of Polish national forces in the fight against occupying Russian forces during the partitioning of Poland, late 18th century. And the name might not be familiar to so many of you, Tadeusz Kościuszko, this very important national hero of Poland. And actually, many of you would be familiar with these works because Kościuszko in 1777 was playing his part in the American Revolutionary Wars. He was responsible for the construction of defences for General Horatio Gates at the Battle of Saratoga. He built the defences also at what today is the West Point Military Academy in the United States. And of course for Australians, you know him better not as Kościuszko but as Kosciuszko, in the highest peak of Australia, was dedicated to him. So this very famous Polish patriot swore his allegiance to the state, became commander-in-chief of Polish forces in the fight against occupying Russians here on this exact spot, 24th of March 1794. Let's go and have a look at this beautiful Rynek Główny main market square. So as well as the cloth hall here on this side of the main market square, we have the old town hall tower. Krakow's city hall used to be located at the far end of the square. It was destroyed by occupying Austrians during the 19th century to open that part of the square up. It was quite dilapidated. It was in need of repair, restoration, so they decided just to destroy it altogether and build a new town hall in another area of the city. But this remains, the old town hall tower, this clock tower, which serves as a nice lookout now for tourists, and which in the past housed a torture chamber, a munitions storage, a theatre, a small cafe located in the bottom of it today. This is just one side of the Rynek Główny, measures 200 metres by 200 metres. As I said, it's the largest medieval market square in all of Europe. And on this side of the square is where they'll set up the stage for the New Year's Eve celebrations. Right behind the Rynek Główny, the main market square, we have the Mały Rynek, the small market square, and this is where in the past the fishmongers and the butchers were located. All of those guys that were throwing away blood and guts and that probably didn't smell too bad, they were hidden away here in the little square in the back so that it was away from the finery that was over there on the main market square. Well, I'm standing here next to the fountain, the student Jaka. This is a copy of one of the figures on the famous Weizstos altarpiece in St Mary's Church here in Krakow, and it was It was built and donated by artists during the 1950s who were working on the restoration inside St Mary's Basilica. Behind the Jacques fountain is this small church, small Gothic church of St Barbara, and I always consider that the 4th of December is when the festive season begins here in Poland, because 4th of December is St Barbara's Day. So if you're a Barbara, that's your feast day, your name day, and the name day is very important in Poland, celebrated more than birthdays. But St Barbara, she's also the patron saint of miners, and of course miners here in this country, whether it was salt miners of the Middle Ages or coal miners of the last 2 centuries, have always been considered greatly important. And so on the 4th of December, this church absolutely is going mad on the 4th of December, but all over the country churches are having special mass for the miners, and they'll get together then in large groups and they'll drink beer and eat pork. Fantastic occasion, particularly if you have a miner in the family. My father-in-law's a miner, and it's a wonderful day for them, and it's a wonderful day and a real kickstart to the festive celebrations of December and the Christmas period. So Krakow's Christmas markets take place here on the eastern side of the Rynek Główny, of the main market square. And here in the area of this little church is dedicated to Saint Wojtek, or Saint Adalbert, his Latin name, who in the 10th century was one of the first missionaries to come here and to start baptizing the Poles. And they say actually this church is one of the oldest in the city, tiny little church with the green dome, and the oldest parts of it date back to the 11th century, and they say that it's built on the place where Saint Wojtek used to baptise the local Krakowians. And in the distance too we can see the towers of one of the most recognisable landmarks of Krakow, which is St Mary's Basilica, the beautiful 14th century church which was built by the townsfolk. It was the church of the townspeople, whereas the cathedral was the church of the royalty. In there we have the very famous altarpiece of Wojtek Stos. He spent 16 years living here in the city during the 15th century, creating this wonderful altarpiece from a piece of linden wood already 500 years old, stolen by the Nazis and found again by George Clooney and the Monuments Men. So thank you. And here actually in this space there used to be 2 great weigh stations weighing all of the goods that were being brought in to be traded here in Krakow. But today and now this is where we've got the Christmas markets. So we'll go and have a look. They're pretty quiet. It's midweek of course, and 2021 is not the busiest year for our Christmas markets, but at least they're open, unlike many of them around Europe, of course, that decided to close. So there's a bit going on here, a few locals about, and I hear a few accents too. I hear plenty of Italians and Spanish and French and English, of course, Americans too. So, and I should mention, up in the bell tower, of course, of St Mary's is where they play the famous Hey Now. Every hour on the hour, one of the firemen, they play the tune. The guards people, they always used to look out for fire, look out for danger, look out for invasion. And according to the legend, during the 13th century when those Tatars were invading, the guardsman sounding the warning with his trumpet, he gets shot through the neck. And so that's why they never complete the tune when they're playing the Hey Now from the top tower, which they're doing at the moment.
Wszystkie na muzykę i
So this is one of my favorite treats down in the Christmas markets. It's something we often cook at home too. It's Otsipek, which is a cheese. It's a salted smoked cheese made by the Highlanders down in Tatra Mountain region, Beskid Mountain region. I live in the Beskid Mountain region, and it's delicious. It's a salted cheese. It's a bit like hamuli or something like this, and it's off the grill. So the sauce on it is juravina. It's a cranberry jam, and the sweet juravina with the salted grilled cheese is just superb. Excellent. So one of the great unique gifts to pick up here in the Christmas markets in Krakow, or in all of Poland, is the Bolesławiec pottery. So this is great handmade, hand-painted pottery from the town of Bolesławiec, which is in southwestern part of Poland in the region of Dolnośląsk, Lower Silesia. And they're very famous worldwide for this blue and white dotted pottery, plates and ceramic and cups and teapots, but of course they do Christmas decorations too. So I'm going to take some of these ones, a couple of candle holders, an angel and a Christmas tree, to take home to Max and Matilda. Okay, Benji. So I'm enjoying some more of my favourite. This is Polish Kashanka. It's Polish black sausage and pieczaki, mushrooms. The black sausage isn't everybody's cup of tea, but I love it. This is not Christmas food. This is Christmas market food, of course. In a couple of nights we have Wigilia, Polish Christmas Eve. 12 dishes, the centerpiece of which is the Polish Christmas carp. So I can't wait. Maybe I put something together to share with you, but I'm going to enjoy my blood sausage and my pieczaki. I need to get home. I hope you've enjoyed our walk through Krakow, a Christmas walk through Krakow, and a little bit of the markets. Take care, everybody. I wish you Merry Christmas, Wesołych Świąt, all the very best from Krakow. Remember, if you want to join myself and Insight Vacations Luxury Gold Vacations here in Krakow, follow the links below. Would love to see you here. Take care. Bye for now.